So thank you very much. And I think we're also honored to have the presence of Mr. Minister Blanard. So it's an added, yeah, we're both blinded by the lights, so it is. But Minister, if you're out there, then thank you very much for taking the time and listening to us in terms of what we can take away from this actually personally incredible day in terms of information, in terms of highlights. Again, the theme was reuniting the V4. What I heard were all sorts of ideas, not so much and more on strengthening how the V4 can operate from a business perspective. Throughout the day, we heard about competition, but I'd like to perhaps focus more on one of the elements that came back constantly. We heard it in the automotive discussion on, focus on what you do well in terms of your expertise. And of course, behind that, there are people, there is the talent, there's the training. And this is where, Jan Kubiš, again, with your vast experience of working around the world, dealing with, as we were just saying over lunch, numerous, if not thousands of very, very talented people. There is the notion of talent, and then there is, of course, the results of that talent. So I'm just wondering, and this is a wide open question, obviously, what have you learned over your experience in terms of motivating people, getting people to not just be skilled, but to give the very best of themselves, and why not even surprise themselves in terms of doing better than they had thought possible?
Well, Bob, thank you very much for this introduction. And you gave me a question. I would be very happy to respond from my own perspective. And first of all, many thanks to the organizers for inviting me as well. And you asked what I have been doing to motivate the people in different positions, starting from governments, civil society, tribal leaders, etc., because that was what I was doing as well in many parts of the world. The first essential thing from my perspective is to listen and to be responsive. Not only listen, taking notes, etc., but trying to understand what they are telling you, why they are telling you, what are the interests, why they are formulating certain things. And then to respond, not only to take note and give you your own take, but have a dialogue with them, trying to understand. And trying to understand doesn't matter that one must definitely, sometimes must not agree with them. You have to have certain values, certain principles, certain positions. So you have to be able to formulate to them, okay, here, thank you very much, I respect, or sometimes even without that, because some positions were not of the kind that I would like to respect, but I take the position, but this is my take on it. But again, a dialogue, listening. The partners must understand that you are there for them, that you are not there for yourself, but for them. So maybe this, a very brief response. I'm not sure whether I satisfied your curiosity on this, but nevertheless.
First of all, you're not here to satisfy me, number one. And secondly, I think what you gave us was a wonderful definition, actually, even of negotiation. I go back to that because it is what I'm very, let's say, passionate about. The fact that actually engaging with people is a never-ending learning exercise. And I think that you mentioned just a moment of understanding or differentiating between positions, which are basically what people announce, and what they really need, for lack of a better term, which we could call priorities. And the whole idea of establishing actually a hierarchy of priorities to perhaps create, and since we use the word transaction many times today, and deal-making implies transaction, understanding with knowledge what is the value of what you're getting and what is the cost of what you are, let's say, giving to the other side. Is this something that you could adhere to?
Yes, I believe yes. That's a nice way how to encapsulate what I was saying as well. Basically, it's a similar approach or the same approach given in different terms and words.
So I've took down a few notes here. For example, we were talking about business cycles. We were also talking about, and I found it very interesting just maybe half an hour ago, one of the panelists was saying that, everybody has their highway, everybody has, whatever it is they need in terms of infrastructure, but then there's also the idea of renewal and upgrading and improving. We're seeing that in many European countries. I don't necessarily want to name them. We hear about crumbling infrastructure. So clearly there's a huge business potential from that point of view. And of course, it will also be necessary to have, let's say, the policies, plural, which will allow that type of engagement and the opportunity to take advantage of that.
I agree, and many thanks that you mentioned the policies, because I'm not sure that I am a good interlocutor on the issue of revamping the infrastructure and building roads, etc. This is not my cup of tea. But policies, perhaps, yes. And when I was listening, not to all the panels, unfortunately, I missed some of them, but nevertheless, still I was not able to get the right response, or the response to the main question. Is the V format as a platform still relevant? And where is the added value, if any, in that format as a political platform? As a platform that should determine policies, approaches, where the governments are playing a role. Because I heard a lot about the interests of businesses, even some requirements, some requests, some complaints about governments, what they do or don't do. But yes, businesses are working. They can reinvigorate V4. But is it possible to reinvigorate V4 being driven only by the interests of businesses? Where is the role of governments? And we see that that role is wanted, I would say. I'm not sure whether we have the right response, but I'm afraid that at this point of time, the governments of the V4 countries, for some good reasons, maybe not all of them so good, they do not communicate that well, and they are not serving as a platform, serving the V4 to strengthen it as a platform to protect our own interests, to work on our own interests as the V4 countries, then within the European Union, and then out with the outside world. I'm not sure that we see this, and I hope very much that that will change.
So I think with a comment like we've just heard, I think my screen here over here from Slido should be percolating. That apparently is not the case, so I think everybody here knows how to activate this. But the idea, and of course we don't want to turn this into a political discussion, but certainly the importance, certainly we heard this morning at a European level, so these policies, and we all know that there are European norms which then need to be transposed at a national level, and then of course the implementation to a large extent falls upon the member states to make sure that these things, let's say, are implemented as originally agreed.
I agree that we should not turn this into another geopolitical panel, but at the same time we cannot avoid it. Have a look what is determining the approaches of businesses. We heard it. We heard it in different other panels. Is the situation of the European Union. What is the European Union? European Union is quintessentially a body, an organism that is following the rule-based international order, that is pursuing and promoting this international order internationally, but also internally. And what is the wind? The wind from the outside is right the opposite. We see the weakening, the crumbling down of rule-based international order. The second line that I would like to share with the audience now is as well, and it was mentioned here, it starts from the home. If we speak about rule-based international order, we must work for the rule of law inside of our countries. This is also part of the EU legacy. This is a part of our commitments. If we don't do it, how we can work, how we can successfully work with the businesses, how we can empower the businesses, how we can create conditions for the businesses to cooperate better within our countries, among our countries, and then, of course, within the European Union, in the outside world. So these are some questions that I have, and we need to find our own responses, and this is the responsibility of governments. The third point that I would like to mention as well is there are so many issues where we can cooperate despite, at this point of time, existing differences that we have, the V4 countries and the governments of the V4 countries that they have. As I said, some of them for well understood reasons, but nevertheless there are many more commonalities and common issues that we need to address to be, again, relevant for our businesses, for our citizens. If we will not do it, then I'm sorry, then the governments are not doing the right service and providing the right service to the citizens, to the businesses, and to the objectives that they set for themselves as well. So we need to work on this, and I'm afraid that at this point of time it's still an uphill struggle. I hope that it will change relatively soon with the end of the Russian aggression in Ukraine, because it's coming this way or that way, and I hope very much that it will put aside one of the blocking factors in the way of better cooperation of the governments, and eventually will help to establish new areas of cooperation. And this is at least maybe a wishful thinking, but I don't think that it's that much just wishful thinking. I believe this is something that is coming.
So then we're almost in the business of articulating what are the risks. I mean, we heard the word challenges a lot today, but I think what you're implying is that almost, and I don't want to say existential risk, but there's a notion of risk, and some of us remember that there was this notion of collective security. There was a notion of, you know, these elements of united we stand, divided we fall. And to what extent here again can the business community, being perhaps under the political radar, sort of maybe pushing the boundaries a little bit of what is considered politically correct, and I'm not using that loaded term the way it's been used in the past, but to what extent can actually business, in terms of what you've just said, try to maintain the commonality and identification of, let's call it, common interests that the countries have, but also in terms of stakeholders?
Well, the business community, of course, is trying to do so, but again, they cannot do it without governments. There is a need to have good communication between the governments and businesses of your own country. Is it happening? Look at my country. Not necessarily the case. Is it happening in some other V4 countries? And then another question is, do the governments of our countries have a big vision that is spanning 1, 2, 3, 4 election cycles in our countries? I'm not sure. Definitely I'm not sure as regards my country. We don't have such a vision. How we can provide support to the governments? We can do it in a transactional way. It was mentioned here, the ship follows the flag. Basically what we have, and some of the business representatives mentioned how important it is to have a prime minister, president, the minister traveling to this or that country to open the doors for businesses. Yes, but this is the minimum minimorum. But we need to have a vision. And I had it before in one of my previous capacities, that I received a question from a company that worked in Slovakia in the automotive industry as one part of the supply chain of that. And they told me very clearly, and it is already some 10, 15 years ago, it's nice, but this is not the future. For us, this is not the end of our own vision. We would like to be more in added value, not just production of some spare parts here and there. Do you have a vision in Slovakia? Which way you see your country from now, 5 years from now? In which areas? Well, I said, yes, we have some ideas. I shared some ideas, came back. I was then in the government. And I asked, do we have, and shall we develop a vision? Unfortunately, even up until now, we don't have such a, how we would like to see my country 25 years from now. Is it one of the leaders in the automotive industry? What kind of automotive industry? Is it a leader with regard to some policies that should increase the competitiveness of the European Union? Is it the country that would like to be better interconnected with the neighboring countries? It is still not working. I heard about the big investment that is in the pipeline of a Polish company in Ukraine. Well, why this Polish company is not investing in Slovakia? We need refurbishment of our own infrastructure. It would be, for me, quite an opportune situation to see mutual investments of our countries with each other, working together. I'm not sure that this is happening. Is this supported by the governments? Etc., etc. So this is my take on how businesses can help, but again, not without some vision on the side of the leaderships of their countries.
Which sort of takes us back to the proverbial dilemma of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. And perhaps this morning, going back and trying to find a way of let's say, closing the day to an extent, we heard the importance of the European Union as trying to cobble together some policies and some joint visions, as you've been saying, and also trying to leave it to the member states to figure out how they're going to about doing, but already establishing those longer-term strategic priorities.
Yes, that's something that, again, is being done in cooperation with the government, but sometimes there is an overreach, and I'm afraid that sometimes the feeling in Brussels is that we are going to save the world. I'm sorry, we are not going. As the European Union, we cannot save the world. We have to be ambitious, but not over-ambitious. We have to have objectives. We have to start with the point that we are open economies, that we are a part of the globalized system, although that system is being again attacked, unfortunately, and we see less and less or shrinking space for that. We must fight this. This is something that we need to do. And globalized system that is very open is not only open as regards businesses, as regards objectives, but as regards values, as regards certain principles, as regards education, for example. And coming back to the education, we, our universities, academic institutions, we like to work with others, but in many other parts of the world, do we have well-established relations of our own universities, research centers? Yes, there is some cooperation. Is it enough? Do we plan together how to help in developing the needs of our industries to have the qualified workforce of different kind? Do we plan it well in my country, in other countries? Do we plan it together as the V4? This would be a good ambition from my perspective, and this would be something that the government can think about and should be thinking about, because it can help businesses in each of our countries, but also as the V4, that could be quite a powerful bloc within the European Union, but also outside of the European Union.
So this also calls into play, let's call it the system of coalitions and like-minded groups and creating a critical mass. And it's almost Newtonian physics, because even if you get a relatively smaller volume, but if they're very, very cohesive and dense, they can also attract larger entities. So we talk about the European Union as something larger. You're also saying that maybe the world is getting a bit smaller in terms of, let's say, some of the principles and values that we have, let's say, espoused over the last 30-something years. So basically, I think it's fair to say that, you know, the life expectancy of being a small sanctuary is perhaps not the way to go, but still reach out to sort of other like-minded, like-valued entities out there in the world.
But then we have to be true to our basic principles, open economy, working in a globalized world. Can we do it by, for example, closing our markets for the competition that is coming from abroad, starting with China, but not only with China, but starting with China? What are the reasons why we are doing it? Would we like to be a skansen of certain technologies that might be perceived in some other parts of the world as a little bit outdated? Can we compete on this basis? Can we develop on this basis? So again, these are many questions that we ourselves must respond to ourselves first before preaching about certain things. Why we are trying to close our market to competition? Is it helpful? I don't think. Businesses, they can provide better response to this, but I don't think that this is something that helps us. We have to be exposed to competition. Otherwise, we cannot develop, and then we cannot be competitive enough in the outside markets. The last session was speaking about emerging markets, with what we can compete there. Yes, we heard about the textile, top-class industry from Hungary, if I'm not wrong, a family business. Yes, it's a niche business. Can we compete with other products? I was relatively recently in China, and I have to say what I saw there was amazing. And they were laughing at us. They were telling me, "Hi guys, you were excellent in technology. You produce perfect combustion engines. We copied there, we now produce better. But while you put, as one of the company told me, that is producing electric vehicles, you put a a software, okay, fine, a telephone, because that they are making telephones as well, mobile phones, a phone on the wheels. We put as the first product the phone, the software, the AI, etc., and then we know how to do the wheels. We already copied what we wanted from you. We are better in producing this, but you cannot produce what we do with the help of artificial intelligence and this top-class modern technologies. So this is something how they look at us. This is something how some other countries look at us, as a sort of grouping that is, well, afraid of competition, if you wish, and not able to compete with them with the same quality of advanced production. And this is not our mistake. We would like our entrepreneurs, I'm talking to many Slovak entrepreneurs, they are ready to compete. They know that they need a protection, for example, intellectual property, when speaking about certain developing markets or certain big markets. Here they need the assistance of rule-based order, WTO, but also national governments. So again, many challenges. V4 must mobilize the work of the governments. The governments must help our businesses listen to what the businesses are trying to tell them, saying about the interest, about the needs, etc., and then to translate it into cooperative engagement within the European Union, but also with other partners outside.
And this sounds like a call to arms, in extent.
In a way, yes.
The V4 getting its act together in a very interdependent way, and then hopefully getting this message across. We heard about, if I'm not mistaken, the B9 group. Then, of course, we're now with the EU27, and hopefully in a few years it'll be up to 29, 30. So that is the hope that we can exchange, that we can expound. And I believe our time is up. And at this stage, I think, Jan?
Yes, if that's the case, just the last point, and thank you for mentioning that the European Union might be deepening, but also growing. We must take this into account as well. If you wish, this is one of the areas where, again, V4 can cooperate. Ahead of us is the enlargement of the European Union. We have the countries of the Western Balkans. We have the Ukrainian case. These are clearly the cases where we need to sit with our businesses and to make sure that we negotiate with these countries also in such a way that we protect the interests of our businesses with regard to the challenges of the enlargement. Not to stop the enlargement, not to prevent it, but to protect our interest, as everyone is doing. And I remember when we were entering the European Union, how all members were protecting their interests vis-à-vis our own interests, and basically they were very successful, let's put it like this.
Since I will then therefore abuse of the luxury of having the last word, I think we heard the word cooperation. I think it's fair to say that cooperation is the result of successful negotiation, not just having a deal, but implementing what you've agreed to. And I think if we talk about collaboration, it is cooperation over a longer term. And I think with that, I think you and I will leave the stage. We are history.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.